Welcome to It's a New Day. My name is James Young.
This week, we are going to talk about community and community building. But before we engage in this discussion, we must first define community and then what is community building. The definition of community for the purpose of this discussion: people who live within a geographically defined area and who have social and psychological ties with each other and with the place where they live. In order to strengthen a community, we must understand the characteristics of a community. First, the community must have an awareness of an issue or issues. Successful efforts are more likely to occur in communities where residents recognize the need for some type of initiative. A community building effort must address an issue which is severe enough to warrant attention and which affects enough residents of a community to spark self-interest and participation. The motivation for change must come from within the community. The motivation to begin a community building process is self-imposed rather than encouraged from the outside. There must be flexibility and adaptability. Communities which exhibit flexibility and adaptability in problem solving and task accomplishments are more likely to succeed. Communities must have the ability to discuss, reach consensus, and cooperate. Communities have to have a spirit of cooperation and the ability to discuss openly their problems and needs. You have to have identifiable leadership. There are residents whom most community members will follow and listen to, who can motivate and act as spokespersons, and who can assume leadership roles in a community building initiative. Pre-existing social cohesion. Other things being equal, the higher the existing level of social cohesion, that is, the strength of their interrelationships among community residents, the more likely that a community building effort will be successful.
Hard for me to talk because I really feel blessed to be able to be here. I had no way to buy my kids this year. I'm just really I'm glad that there's people out there that want to help people, you know, because I've never been in a situation to ask for help like I am this year.
There is something magnificent about you, regardless to what has happened to you in your life, regardless to how young or how old you think you might be. When you begin to think properly that there is something within you, that there is a power within you that is greater than anything outside of you, when you begin to take on the awareness and to think, I am, I can, I will, this very thought will emerge to the surface of who you are, and it will take over your life. And this thought will feed you, it will guide you, it will protect you, it will clothe you, it will direct you, it will sustain the existence of your very life. Now this is what I know for
unity, community. Yeah, it is. Well, go ahead.
Would you say that again? So we can understand what community, as you're saying, community come unity.
Come to unity. That's the mantra. Yeah, come on, you can do this. It doesn't take a degree. It doesn't take big money. It doesn't take any of it. It just say, the business of democracy is about interacting with your fellow man, woman. And our democracy suffers to the degree that we have these lines where you're not welcome, or I won't even speak to you this morning. This kind of thing reduces the effectiveness of this nation.
We have to face the fact that the isolation that that we see in this community, the economic isolation, the racial isolation, is not in anyone's interest, whether you're out in the suburbs and sitting in a classroom surrounded by all kids who look exactly like you, or whether you're in the city and sitting in a classroom surrounded by kids who look exactly like you. That's not the way the rest of the world is. That's not the way the adult world is when people get out of those communities. And we need to change those sets of experiences too. We need to understand community and the interests of the community at large. And we need to understand that you can't even have a healthy economy locally, an economy that works for anyone, if in fact we're not producing people who can work in that economy and contribute to that economy. That you can't isolate these problems.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
Community.
Teamwork.
Sustainability.
Grassroots change.
The definition of community building. Community building generally refers to building the social networks within the community and developing group and individual problem-solving and leadership skills. Any identifiable set of activities pursued by a community in order to increase community social capacity. Characteristics of the community building process. There must be widespread participation. Participation with community members and the recruitment of new participants is crucial. There must be no competition in pursuit of goals. Existing community organizations do not perceive other organizations or the leaders of a community building initiative as competitors. Developing self-understanding. This process includes developing a group identity, clarifying priorities, and agreeing on how to achieve goals. Benefits to many residents. Community goals, tasks, and activities must have clear, visible benefits to the people in that community. Linkage to organizations outside the community. Community members need to develop ties to organizations outside of their community. There must be a systematic gathering of information and analysis of community issues. This process includes taking careful steps to measure and analyze the needs and problems of the community. Early involvement and support from existing organizations. Community organizations of long tenure and solid reputation must become involved early on. Use of technical assistance. Community residents use technical assistance, that is, experts who will be providing consultation or hands-on training in their areas of knowledge to help them gain competence in a particular area. Community control over decision making. Residents must have control over all decisions that are made within their community. There must be the right mix of resources. The process is not overwhelmed by too many resources or stifled by too few. And there must be a balance between internal and external resources. The community must have a good system of communication. There must be effectively communicating with inside the community and to the rest of the world at large.
One of the things that Dr. King said, that there is nothing more appalling than the noise of bad people, than the appalling silence of good people. How can we get good people to start supporting the efforts of the police department?
I think the key piece of that is for the good people to realize that it's not about the police against them. You know, a lot of people will when you talk to people about police and police engagement, police relationships, they'll make it sound like the police department's out there trying to make arrests to make the police department look good. The reality is realize why the police department is doing what they're doing. You know, my gentleman here, he works for the Jefferson Avenue Business Association. From his perspective, he wants us to keep that block clean. And that's why we go clean that block. Well, from somebody else's perspective is, why are you messing with these young men? You know, all they're doing is just chilling. They're not committing a crime. They're just hanging out. But that chilling, hanging out disrupts business because somebody says, I'm not going to go on Jefferson Avenue because I see all these young men hanging out. So a lot of what the police department does isn't to satisfy the police department. It's really to satisfy the people who live in these neighborhoods.
Process of extracting this bad element out of this community, it left a serious hole, if you will, in the community, because now we're seeing the devastating effect of black men being extracted out of this community, and in certain zip code areas in the Crescent area, there are no men between the ages of 17 to 35. Is this something that the police department has thought about? Are there ways that we can still enforce the law? Are there other alternatives besides just going to prison, which is now determining how the punishment fits the crime? Would you speak on that?
Well, I think that for a lot of Rochester's neighborhoods in which you have poverty, you are going to have a lot of young African-American males that are going to go to jail. And a lot of them based on the fact that they have not invested in their education, they have not invested in having a positive lifestyle. That contributes to that enforcement being part of the solution. I will say this too, though, that I don't think that enforcement is the answer to any problem. You know, we're not going to arrest our way out of this problem because we've, you know, in my lifetime, you know, I'm 55 years old, and you know, we've tried to arrest our way out of these problems, and it's not the solution to the problems.
The people that are watching understand that you are looking at role models presently. We do not wear capes. We are not superheroes. We are individuals that are regular citizens, but we care about what happens to you, and we need you to care about yourselves.
I'd like to say that you're ordinary people doing extraordinary things. How do we begin to get young people to start recognizing their self-worth? How do we get them on that track? How do we get them to recognize that they can and do whatever it is that they desire to do?
I think we begin with trust. You know, there's been so many things that the young kids that I talk to and see, as I told you, from Avenue D and, you know, other places that I go. Trust. You know, I think that the young people are losing the trust in the people that they used to look up to. You know what I mean? You and I, we used to do things, but things that I'm saying to you now, the change has to come from people that you trust, that you believe in, and that they can see that you are actually doing what you say. You know, I remember the first show that I saw, you had about the drafts and things, and me and you talked briefly about it. You know, a lot of kids don't know how to, you know, like even know what it is when you see these things. And I asked them about your show. They said, "Oh, you know him?" I said, "Yeah, you know." And see, these are the kind of things that I think that I want you to know, that the young boys are paying attention to, and they're paying attention to people that tells them about things, you know, and showing them by seeing you on the shows and by seeing other people, you know, that tells them there is a different way.
A child is a blank canvas. It's up to the parents to put something positive on that canvas. Strict mom, strict dad, they really played a big part in my life. And actually my dad, you know, he was the one that says, you know, you have to make a difference. It's not that you can make it, you got to make a difference.
That's right, that's right.
And even my spiritual father was my pastor, Reverend Simon Lowe. He said, go to college, come out and create a job. Don't come out and get a good job. Come out and create a good job.
We're all a part of the same community, in a sense, where we need to be accountable to our children. We need to let them know that we care for them and that we love them. We have not hit the bottom. Okay. There's still hope in our youth. They still inspire to be great and they will be great with the help of us and others. It's my passion, and what you're hearing right now truly is my heart. And that's the reason why I show up to work each and every day, willing to work with these families and really encourage them and motivate them and empower them, because I can know that they can do it.
We have to teach pride in blackness, and pride in blackness is something that we don't do well as a community. So, you know, we often speak derogatorily about males in our community. We use the N-word. We do a lot of things that talk negatively about our people, and our kids are hearing this. So we already know that some other folks don't think as highly as of us, but when we repeat those things, we confirm that for them. What do you think about your people? What do you think about where you come from? It weighs on your self-esteem. And so what we try to do is to teach parents how you can teach pride in blackness. What are some of the ways that you have conversations even about them? And, you know, making sure that they attend and participate in some of the cultural activities that are in the community. So we have different resources in the community where they can go and learn more about those heroes that they've heard about, but they just only heard a snippet about them, and where they can learn about other people. So when we start talking about pride and blackness, it's the whole of our existence, not just right now.
If you make a better parent, you're going to have a better child. If you have a better parent and child, that makes for a better family. And if you have a better family, that makes for a better citizen and a better community.
Absolutely.
And if you have a better citizen and community, you now have a better city. So I think that that is something that when we look at the bigger picture, what this is all about is basically making our city better.
Absolutely. That's exactly what it's doing. And I would say that for a long period of time, and the city's not the only one that's doing that, for a long period of time, we went on the premise that we need to serve kids. So we did what we thought was best for children. And not that that was wrong, but you cannot serve children like they don't exist in families. And by and large, the programs, schools, all of these institutions that actually serve children only have children for a short period of time. The family has them the bigger period of time. And so if we think we're just going to work with kids without families, then we're not doing the right thing. And so not just the city, the county, the school district, everybody is looking at how do we incorporate parents not just as partners in what we're doing, but really to reinforce what they have and to let them know that we understand and know that they are the primary caregivers. They are the first teacher, the first and the last. So what we should be doing if we want better outcomes for our children, they might belong to the parents, but they're all the community's children, that we provide support for the parents as well. Now, we ain't gonna do it for you, okay? But we can give you some tools to make your job a lot easier, and that's what we should be doing.
I like that term, kinship caring. What's that?
Kinship caregivers,
yeah,
yes.
That's a beautiful thing.
Yes, it is. It is. It's quite a concept to understand that your network of family is not necessarily that typical nuclear family that we always refer to, but the kin in our lives are sometimes from very unlikely sources.
The extended family relationships, like we're talking about, rebuilding a whole community, you think about rebuilding the community of your family and who's there for you, who do you reach out to, who can you rely on. Some of the youth do a connectedness map and can tell us who was really important in their growing up. So was it your best friend's mother? Was it your babysitter, when you were in grade school and your parent wasn't home? Who was it that watched out for you? Because we're finding amazing connections with extended family members, some that are out of town, some that are out of state, that may or may not be a place for that youth to go live, but can offer a component of a lifetime network of support.
One of the things that I hear coming loud and clear from the both of you is that you're not basically making excuses for where these people are at, but you're giving them tools to empower themselves so they can look at where they're at and then pull themselves out of this.
Well said.
I think that that's what the viewing audience has to be able to understand, that there is something out here that can work, that there is this program that can help you take stock of your life. There is something out here that can help you get some balance in your life. I think that this is the basic principle that most people want, regardless of where they are on the economic strata. I think we all like to have balance, a good quality of life, but many of us don't really know how to make that happen. And it's a beautiful thing to know that there's an agency here in our city and our county that it can assist in helping us become better citizens. I've been gone from here for quite some time, and I've traveled not just across the country but around the world as well. And since I've come back this last time, I've been here now for a year without going anywhere. And one of the things that I have discovered that Rochester, or Monroe County, but we here in this area have one of the best social networks, or one of the best social blankets that we can possibly have for when people fall through the cracks. There are agencies, as you said, there are food banks, there are medical facilities that one can go through. And once again, I really would like the viewing audience to understand that they're not beyond hope, that they're not beyond help. It does not matter what you may think that your conditions are, that you are professionals and you have the ability to come into that particular environment and help them turn their lives around.
You know, we sit back and we say, well, I don't have to worry about that. I like to say, you know, we're in a big, huge boat, and if somebody's making a hole here, eventually we will all be underwater. So you can't ignore that. You can't say, you know, that could never happen to me. That's somebody else's child. That's somebody else's neighborhood. I'm not going to go down that street. The truth is, we're all diminished when we have a loss. We're all diminished. I believe there's a wonderful concept that the Gandhi Institute talks about. It's called Swadeshi, and I'm not sure if I'm saying it properly, but it means really every interaction you have, you do no harm. So every interaction you have is positive, is joyful, is life-affirming. If you go through life that way, at the end of the day, even if you've had a tough day, it's pretty good because people respond. So, you know, we have so many people who want to say negative things, who want to tear people down, who want to be negative. You won't hear me say that. I'm not interested in that. I don't have time for that. If somebody wants a gossip, they should probably talk to somebody else. I'm human, obviously, so we get into it sometimes. You know, we say, oh, we don't like her dress or something, but most of the time we have got to be positive.
Exactly.
We've got to be positive. Our kids deserve that. I came to the Center for Youth just 11 years ago, and I was a corporate tax lawyer practicing law at Nixon Peabody, which is a big, wonderful, major law firm downtown, and I was making a bundle, I'll tell you. And my mother, who was my great support and hero, was dying, and I knew she was dying. And she said to me, you know, at the end of the day, you really have to make more of a difference. You're making lots of money, and you're working all these hours, but the universe seems to be missing your spirit. And at that same time, I got a call from a friend named Walter Cooper and his wife. And Helen and Walter Cooper, Walter Cooper's a great member of our community and the first African-American PhD chemist at Kodak. A wonderful, wonderful family, and Helen's gone since that time, but they called me and said, look, you need to look at this job. The Center for Youth is looking for a new executive director. Get out of that fancy law firm and get your feet wet. And I went to the Center for Youth 11 years ago. I tell people this is the hardest job I ever had. You know, 2 weeks ago we lost one of our young men, Lawrence Richardson, was a friend. He was at the Center for Youth, and those are the days when you say, boy, it would be so much easier to go into a law firm and just put my head down and write some case study or respond to some kind of criminal suit or do some kind of corporate tax law that I was doing. How do we survive the death of our children, really? One of them, who we thought was all set, and he was all set, I will tell you, he was on his path. He had survived and moved forward, and he had worked with us, and he had a job, and he was one of the kids we weren't worried about anymore. So why? Well, you know the expression, I think the Kennedys are the first one that said, you know, too much is given, much is expected. I have had, since almost the moment I was born, the most wonderful life. And I think I reached a point in my own life. I've been married. I'm going to tell you this is going to give my age away. I'm hesitant, James, to say I've been married 40 years this summer. So same guy is putting up with me. Of course, he's exhausted by my lifestyle. But we have had the most wonderful life here in the city. We have 2 amazing children born and raised in the city of Rochester, went to city schools. Beautiful young people. I owe this community my very best. I don't need to have an easy life. I have maybe 10 or 15 events a week, 6 or 7 on one day. It's okay. I'm able to do it. I have the energy. I have the opportunity, and it's my great pleasure to give back to this community. I'm a politician, so I also have to run for office once in a while and campaign, but I don't need this job. I don't need the money from it. I give it away as much as I get in. I give away back to the community, my city council money, which is my honor and pleasure to be able to do that. And we're doing just fine. We're doing just fine. So I think I probably gained as much as I've given. When people say, you know, why would you do this? You could do anything. And I think my blessings far outnumber what I'm giving back. Now, I've described our community as having like a little bit of a virus. We're not sick enough to stay home. We're not sick enough to go to the doctor, but we're not functioning. We're just not healthy. We got to get, and what is the medication? What is the medication to can turn this virus, this little infection? Well, it's love. Love and caring and commitment. People like you who step up and try to help the community and send messages. People like me, we do what we can. That's the antidote. That's the medication to this virus that we have in our communities.
I love my community, but I would say that if people could do it a little bit differently, they would. And they would not do it because we're going to have poor people. We're going to have, or, you know, low-income people, and that's black, that's white, that's Hispanic. It's not just to the black community, but you're going to have poor people. But how we manage that, and what do we do on behalf of these individuals so that we help you and not hurt you, is what government and what our local and what our leaders, and in particular the Rochester Area Black Political Caucus, are looking forward to doing. Listening to the community, developing the community, and developing the agenda, and from that agenda going to develop policy that helps. We recognize in government that we can't do this by ourselves. You know, we can't govern our way out of it. We can't, you know, as the police chief said, we can't arrest our way out of this. It is a partnership. I need every citizen, every constituent that wants to do their part and want to help. We need them to help. You know, we need their relationships. We need them to feel safe and secure to give us a call. We need them to understand that we are here to help and not to harm. And we are in this with them. And I think that sometimes our citizens feel like they're in it all by themselves. And that's not true. We understand the issues and the problems, and we can do what we can do. But at the end of the day, our police officers, they go home. At the end of the day, our mayor, myself, we go home. And they have to live there. And so we have to do our part to make sure that the environment that they have to live in is better. But we also need their help. So when it's time to throw that wrapper from the corner store in the garbage, I need you to throw it in the garbage. I need you to tell our children to throw it in the garbage. I need them to take pride in their community and take pride in their city. When I look at the work that I've done, rather it's through working with Assemblyman David Gant in his office or, you know, on city council, I know when I ran for office 5 years ago, and I just ran for re-election last year, and I said, if my community was not better because of my service, then I would not run again. And I see things, you know, I think that, you know, when you're in it every day, for example, if I see my child every day, I may not see the growth in her, but because I am coming in and out, I'm able to see the growth in our community, and I am able to see the growth in Northeast Rochester, and the houses that's being torn down, and the businesses that are opening up, and the crime rates that are going down, as well as the positive things. And so I want us to now believe in our city and believe that we are on our way back. Did we hit a rough patch? Absolutely. But we are not giving up. We are Rochesterians first, and we love Rochester. People that come here from other cities, you know, they love Rochester. They can't believe that, you know, one of the people from the Greater Rochester Visitors Association had said, you know what, it's the people that live in Rochester that we have the most problems with. The people that visit here love here. And I want to turn that around. I want the people that live here to be proud that they're from Rochester, and the fact that we care more about our city and our citizens, but we have to do it together, one block at a time.
I'd like to make this perfectly clear to the viewing audience as well. The challenges that we face here in Rochester were here way before you came. So by no stretch of the imagination do we blame or put all this responsibility on you.
Well, some of the responsibility goes, but I hope not the blame, right? You know, the city is not, the way the city's different than business. I've been in business all my life, and I've been in a law firm and all these other places, but the job of the city is not to make money. The job of business to make money. If you're in a business and you make money, you've done a good job. And, you know, so if you not only balance your budget, but you generate a surplus, you're a success in business. The business of the city is to provide the quality of life for its citizens that make them successful in this urban environment. If I balance the budget and the quality of life deteriorates, I'm a failure. But if I balance the budget in another set of circumstances, I'm a success. And it's very important to get that in our head, that the reason for all this trouble and effort is to improve the quality of our lives here and the life that we provide for our citizens. Not just simply numbers, because every number that we have in that budget touches somebody. And that makes it harder, obviously. But I think if you think of it that way, then it seems to me you're going to make better decisions. Where is that money supposed to come from, and who's responsible for it? The city has the inevitable position of being the only one who can't leave. You know, the federal government can leave, and they do. The state government can leave, and they do. And sometimes even the county can leave, and they do. So we wind up sort of being the repository of all of these problems. And yet, of all the people, of all the levels of government I just listed, we have the least financial capacity. And so the reason I worry about it, the reason I worry about the change in attitude in Washington and these other places, is I know where those consequences are going to be born. Exactly. They're not going to be born by the people making the decisions. They're going to be born by us. And so we have to, we constantly have to balance. I give you an example of the balance I use with people. 2 policemen, the cost of 2 policemen equals the cost of running 1 branch library. Yeah, or 1 rec center. So what do? Do I eliminate 2 policemen, or do I close a library? And when you have limited resources, you know, when you can't just go get more resources all the time, sometimes you're making decisions just like that. Now, our city has avoided a lot of that.
I think that that's a very important point that you're bringing out, because we as ordinary citizens, we have no idea that you're making those kinds of decisions.
Right.
And perhaps now we can better understand what it is that you're going through, because my goodness, if you have to close down a library or get rid of 2 police, I mean, we as ordinary citizens, these are things that we're not thinking about.
And you don't want to, and as an ordinary citizen, and I'm sympathetic with this, you don't want either one to happen.
Exactly.
One of the characteristics of this community that we're very fortunate, we have a quality of life here, despite the problems you and I have been talking about, that is one of the highest in the country.
This is one of the primary beauties and major values of community television, in the sense that you can, and the people that are in the studio now that you work with regularly, and anybody really, if it is their desire, they can participate fully in communicating in the marketplace of ideas about the things that they're concerned about. So if there's an idea that you think is important and it's not on the air, you can explore that idea, and with very minimal investment as far as financial investment, you can use this public asset, this community public asset access facility to express those ideas. And that is so critically important to a democracy. And I encourage people to explore the thoughts, the beliefs, the ideas, the issues that are important to them. And I say that not just because I'm just saying, oh, do that. I'm saying that because, in fact, that's what I do. You cannot participate in this democracy if you don't have some control of, some understanding of this very powerful tool known as the media, the messaging enterprise, the messaging environment where messages are created by individuals and corporations for the purpose of influencing your behavior. Go to this place, don't go to that place. Be with this person, don't be with that person. Go to this school, don't go to that school, right? Buy this thing, don't buy that thing. Vote for this person, don't vote for this person, right? We're in a battle royale right now. And without this, without Rochester Community Television and community organizations such as this all across the country, we run the risk of turning into a state, an environment, a culture controlled by media interests. The thing that we're leaving out when it comes to modern media is the extraordinary amount of money that changes hands to put a message on the air, whether it's broadcast or whether it's on broadcast television or broadcast radio in a commercial sphere, or whether it is in a newspaper. It's a tremendous amount of money that is exchanged in order for a person to get, a corporation, an individual to get a message on the air. Now, with respect to commercial stations, you could have a great message. Let's say you have a great message about sexual health or lung cancer or whatever the message is, smoking, whatever. You cannot, as valuable as that message is and as important as that message is to the community, you cannot put that message on the air unless you have a certain amount of dollars. The message is just not going to get on the air. And the more money that you have, the more likely you are to have that message seen by more and more people, because you can pay for those time slots. It's important for people to understand that the programs are the least significant aspect of the equation. What's really important in a broadcast environment is the spaces between the programs, the ad revenue, the messages from Prudential Bache and Kodak and RJR, Nabisco, and millions of other corporations, Bain Capital, millions of other corporations that want to deliver a message to a specific audience.
Oh, I say it again, you've been had. You've been took. You've been hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray, run amok.
What would you tell young people, especially young black people, kind of confused, not knowing what direction to come in? How do you see the media as a vehicle for enhancing the quality of someone's life, or using this as a career goal?
It's complicated because I work in the field, and I would say yes, you can use it as a career. I mean, I love if this is something that you want to do and you get into it and you like it, then yes, I would say definitely pursue it as a career goal. But don't think you're gonna, and that's with any job. A lot of people, they get infatuated. They think they can walk in the door and they're gonna make $75,000 a year. It doesn't happen like that. You know, it takes some time just to get to a certain point. And you know, it's just like anything else. You have to there's some lucky breaks here and there, and at the same time you have to be prepared.
I think that the programming that would come out of a public station would be, for instance, we would produce our own news instead of us having to watch the 6 o'clock news. I'm wondering why we don't produce our own news, give it from our perspective. For instance, I would think that we would do a show that I'm trying to develop now called Good Morning Rochester. Why don't we have shows like this coming on 5 days a week? Why don't we have programming that touches at the heart of matters like this? Another show that I'm looking at, being able to develop so we can perhaps have telephones on in the studio and doing a live talk show where people call in and interact and you know, those types of things. Why don't we have those types of things? That same kind of setup.
We don't have the kind of money they have.
And that's another question. But why?
They're always nothing. You know, I don't want to knock XXI, but they're always having fund drive, pledge drives, and things like that. We get operating funds from Time Warner. They give us operating money and say, "There you go. We'll see you next year." And we're just kind of out here on the island.
What stops us from being able to go get funding?
There's nothing stopping us from going to get funding. The morning shows and things like that takes manpower, people power, and you know, our staff is what, 5, 3, you know. That's about the only thing that's stopping us from doing it. We can do that type of stuff. It just takes a lot of manpower and just, you know, overall producer, and I think it's a good idea. I mean, I really do. It's first, you know, I see no reason that you just mentioned it. Why not do it?
Before we go there, I want to squeeze this in. I need you to really say something to young people about being tenacious, hanging in there. You may not be able to see the prize right now, the way that you did.
Well, I think any young person that's watching this show, you have to have the attitude that you will not be denied, no matter what. It might some things. I always what's the deal? It's certain quotes that I remember. It's one that I had and one about determination. What we hope to do with ease, we must first do with diligence, and I live by that. And that's really strong to me. Is that, you know, if you think it's going to be easy, it's not. But you gotta keep plugging away.
When I told them I want to do a show every week, they said, you know, that's very lofty. There's a lot of shows. I know it. And I told them, I don't care if anybody watches the show or not. I don't care if I'm just talking to the camera. Every week you're going to get a show. Because just like what you said, if we can touch just one person, then it has made all this effort worthwhile. And that's what we've got to start getting back into, making life meaningful again. We now have manufactured our own prisons. And now what I like to be able to think and to believe that we have a medium now that will allow people to come every week, tune into the show, whether you agree or not. But the beauty of that is that you have the ability to voice your opinion. You have the ability to come on this show and share your opinions. This is how the process works. I broadcast the show. You determine what pieces of it that are good for you or not good for you. If you like, I'll offer you the opportunity, as I offered you, to come in and discuss the show, what aspects of the show that you liked or disagree with, and what you bring to the table. That, to me, is when that's when the world is right.
Yeah.
To me, that's when we know that now public TV is really working. The prime purpose in life is to help each other. And if we can't help each other, at least not to hurt each other. No one is worth meeting if that person doesn't have something to teach us, something that we would never learn from a book, or something that we could never learn on our own. There was a time when it took a community to raise a child.
Right.
I believe now that it's going to take the child to make this back into a meaningful community.
That's right.
I believe now it's going to take young people to bring us back to where we need to be. I'd like to be able to end this by saying that we need to develop a strong belief system.
Right, definitely.
There were two men that were condemned to die, and they were brought before this king. And the king asked the first man, and says, "Do you have anything to say before I condemn you to die?" And the first man said, "No, I'm ready to die. You can kill me in the morning." So the king said, "So be it. You'll be executed in the morning." He asked the second person, "Do you have anything to say before I condemn you to death?" And the second man says, "Yes, I do." He says, "King, if you give me a year to live, I'm going to teach your horse how to fly, and you're going to be the only king in the entire world that has a horse that knows how to fly." So the king was bemused by this and says, "Okay, I'm going to give you another year to live." So when they got back to their cell, the first man asked, "Why did you prolong your death? Because you're going to die a year from now, so why don't you just get it over now?" The second man replied, says, "I got 4 options. And the first man asked him, 4 options? Tell me what those options are." So the second man said, "Well, maybe a year from now, the king will die. Maybe a year from now, I will have died. Maybe a year from now, his horse will die."
Okay.
And so the first man said, "Well, what's the 4th option?" He said, "I might just teach that horse how to fly." See, that's what we need to go into making a community better.
Right.
Even though we may never teach this horse how to fly, we got to believe that we are capable of teaching it how to fly.
That's right, that's right.
And when we believe that, I'm telling you, stranger things have happened. It's not only children who grow, parents do too. As much as we watch to see what our children do with their lives, our children are watching us to see what we are doing with our lives. Life affords no greater responsibility, no greater privilege than the raising of the next generation. Affirming words from moms and dads are like light switches. Speak a word of affirmation at the right moment in a child's life, and it's like lighting up a whole room full of possibility. I'd like to share with you a story. There was a gentleman who used to enjoy going for a ride in his automobile. He would put the top down, and he would reserve Sundays for this particular enjoyment for himself. He would take his car and ride out into the country, because there they had these winding, curving roads, and it just exhilarated him to be driving out there by himself, feeling peaceful with the world. This one particular Sunday, as he was driving through the countryside, a woman came speeding by him, and it startled him. and he almost drove off the road. And as she drove by, she yelled at him, "Pig!" As he began to regain control of his car and not to be outdone, he yelled back at her, "Cow!" And when he went around the curve, he hit the pig. Many times what seems to be an insult, many times what we think that appears to be that we're making a criticism could be a warning. And that's what I would like to leave the viewing audience. The show that you saw tonight is a warning. It is something that we need to be aware of. It is something that we need to make this city better. We call this city Greater Rochester, so that must mean that we must be Greater Rochesterians. I ask you, what kind of legacy will we leave behind if we have a community that is isolated, that is not receiving the economic benefit, the economic growth, the cultural growth, the continuity of growth that we see in other sections of Rochester? This is not just a problem that impacts the Crescent area. This is a problem that is impacting and will impact the entire city of Rochester. I ask you again, what kind of legacy do we want to leave behind? Do we want to leave a legacy of we are a city that had great problems? Or do we want to leave the legacy that we became great because we found ways to solve our problems? In order to see another day, you first have to make it through the night. And should you make it through the night, guess what? When you wake up, it's a new day. My name is James Young. I look forward to seeing you next week. Be blessed.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.